All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our end of year giving webinar. It's so fun to see some of you in chat. I even see some, friends of ours, friends of Tithely, customers that we have. So feel free to go in there and say hello and, I don't know, say something about yourself. It's nice seeing where people are from, that kind of thing. So welcome to all of you. I keep forgetting that I'm doing the slides. See, DMAC, look at how quickly that changes. We are just so glad to talk about end of year giving because number one, it's that time of the year. We also know how much it matters to all of our customers. So we always love taking a moment to do it. And we've learned a lot over the years. And so I think today in this presentation, you're going to see all that we have learned around end of year giving and things that we don't want to hold on to, but also share with you. And so let's keep jumping in. Okay, I got to the first slide, so success so far. And there's Frank, just in time for introductions. So today we have our co-founders and co-CEOs. They run the company together, and they're here presenting today. So it's kind of a treat to have them on a webinar. But they are the most generous people personally as well. And they know so much about giving trends. And they also know so much about technology. So really fun to have them leading this webinar today and kind of walking through the slides. And then we have myself who oversees the customer teams. And like I said, I recognize a lot of you in chat already. So it's fun to be able to be here with you today. And then we have Daniel, who we also call DMAC internally, who really gets all the credit for making this webinar happen and getting everything together. Him and his team do a brilliant job at not just this type of webinar, but all kinds of things across Tithely and Breeze University. So that is the crew, and we're excited to be here with you today. Next up, who is Tithely? I think a lot of you do know who we are already, but I'm not going to read this word for word, but this is kind of our anthem and what we believe. We really just want to make your life easier and serve you in so many ways, right? We want to make sure that you have the technology and the product you need to run your church super well and smooth. And then also, we just have these big hearts and we want to serve the church and the kingdom. And we have these amazing people at Tithely that feel that really deep down. And we want to help you make an impact on what you're doing. And so that's more about who we are. I know some of you probably are new customers, right, that haven't had the privilege yet of getting to know us, not like Michael Lane, who is on here that we've spent a lot of time with. So welcome if you are new, and also this is who we are as a company in a couple of paragraphs or sentences. Also, just a little admin shout out. We have a Q&A button. So as you have questions, DMAC, Daniel, is actually going to be answering those as we go along. We might interrupt every once in a while. So be prepared, Dean and Frank, to answer a live question that's good for the whole group. But don't hesitate. There's going to be a lot of content being shared today and goodness. But also, there could be something that just comes up. No question is off limits. So please use that to ask questions. And then without further ado, we have so much to cover content-wise. I want to pass it over to Dean and Frank for them to take it from here. So say hello, Dean and Frank, and then just jump on in.
Absolutely. Great to be here. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for taking some time out in this extremely busy season. We've got all kinds of family stuff going on this weekend, and I know you probably have too, and then church next week, and busy time. So thanks for making the time. We think it's going to be worth every minute. Because this is the number one, from here till December 31st, is the number one biggest giving moment. We see it in our data, obviously. The last 3 days of the year are astronomical giving days. And so this is opportunistic for sure. It's something we should always be talking about and teaching. But you have a lot of people in your churches that are going to give. They're going to give to a lot of things. And what we want them to do is give to your church so you can fulfill your mission for 2026 and beyond. So thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
My audio was having issues. We're excited to do this. Like Dean said, the last week, even the last 3 days of giving in December it's pretty incredible. How people show up and want to be generous, and churches just kind of have to be ready for it. And sometimes just having the tips and things we're going to talk about on your mind is helpful in terms of engaging and growing generosity just by doing a few little things. A lot of, the point of the season is not financial giving, but a lot of it happens right now. So it's good for churches to be thinking about a little bit. So yeah, excited to be here today. Sharon,
100%.
thanks for hosting. Daniel, thanks for hosting.
Yeah.
And the QA is always the best part. So please just
Definitely.
ask questions. We could just do that the whole time.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be like, what are you doing for Christmas, Frank? Tell us more. Nothing's off limits.
Okay.
Oh.
Next
So
slide.
this, yeah. Well, this is okay. Is it next slide? I keep forgetting that I'm doing this. I'm sorry.
Who's the clicker?
It's me.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so here are 4 building blocks around like the anatomy, if you like, of end of year giving that we've over the many years now, over 10, we have honed this. We've got this very streamlined, and it works. So obviously, any type of generosity moment requires a narrative around why. Why do we want people now? You know, we've all taught on tithes and offerings over many years. Of course, we use the Bible as our base for doing so. But it's very important in this narrative over these next couple of opportunities that you're going to have either in person, and some of you have very big Christmas weekends coming up, and then obviously digitally, email, text, and so on, and we'll talk about all that. But having a narrative, making sure your digital hub, and we're going to assume that you all have everything in order for that on the digital side of receiving donations. If you need any last minute help, please reach out to Shrin and her team. Happy to help. Buttons in the right place, all that good stuff. And then a kind of a focused campaign is, what we're going to talk about, and how that basically, if you follow these steps, and that should be very intuitive to everyone listening today, you are going to have a great result. And then we'll just talk about the moment of giving, especially on the Sunday and digitally in your communication. So that's the framework that we're going to start with.
While we jump, or kind of as we're jumping into the framework, I'd love to know how many people who are listening or watching right now, like how many of you guys run some sort of generosity campaign in the month of December? And you could just pop it into the chat, just more for us to kind of see like, how many people are kind of doing something already versus how many people don't really do like a generosity type of focus in the month of December. So just pop it in the chat if you do something and tell us what church you're at.
I will just add that, when I was pastoring many years, it is a bit counterintuitive to talk about giving around Christmas because you've got a lot of visitors, you're mindful of not offending people, but it's very easy to, hey, if you're visiting today, please listen, and we would love you to be involved. But this is really a message to our membership and our vision around 2026. And so you can kind of pocket the visitors so they don't, kind of feel like unincluded or offended. But you can also then open the door to really communicate strongly with the people who are committed and give to your church. Weaving a compelling story. This is, obviously we could go for hours just on this, but I think obviously, grounding your conversations in biblical truth. We serve denominations of every stripe and color. There's all different kinds of emphasis around giving, depending on, what denomination you are, whether you're, kind of independent and non-denominational, all the way through to some of the traditional denominations that we have on our platform. And so you're going to obviously frame this through your doctrine of your denomination, your personal beliefs around your what you think about generosity. But whenever I get a chance to talk to church leaders, generosity always begins with you. And if you have a personal revelation of being generous and being a giver, that will trickle down first to your leadership, then your broader base of people who volunteer and make your church work, and all the way into the congregation. So it starts at the top. And then we're going to give you a couple of ideas for messages. And I think you'll like them. There are myriads of, message topics that you can use around generosity, but we'll talk about a few specifics here going forward.
Dean, you were a pastor for a long time, like 30 years or more, probably still today, pastor to Tithely.
Someone was crying on my shoulder yesterday. So you can't escape.
Like when you were a pastor and you were kind of in the trenches doing the work, like what kind of things were you doing in the month of December? Like what kind of story were you always doing, like a sermon series that involved generosity during the month of December with there's a bunch of different ways to give. We're obviously talking about financial giving to the church right now. You can be generous in lots of ways.
Yeah.
Like, did you have a sermon series? Did you do like a big end of year campaign? What
We did.
kind of things were?
The two main ways of kind of teaching now are topical, right? So you pick a topic, maybe you do 4 weeks on it, or you exposit scripture and you just go through, say, the book of Mark, and it might take you 12 months. And so, but depending, and it doesn't really matter what you're preaching on, there is a giving moment, and you can focus on, it's easy to talk about the generosity of Christmas. We got the greatest gift given to us from God that we could ever be given. So the narrative around Christmas and generosity is super easy, obviously. But then I think it's a matter of either whether you're having a specific Sunday sermon around generosity, which I would encourage because it's so easy to preach, and or in the giving moment. And I would encourage you to take, if your offerings are 2 to 5 minutes, typically, I would take a fraction longer. Caveat at the beginning: visitors, we love you. Please don't worry about this. Talking to my membership, and spend up to 10 minutes. And we're going to tell you kind of how you should begin talking about it here in a minute. But I would definitely think about, if you're not preaching a specific sermon on generosity, having 5 to 10 minutes around the offering moment and making sure you do.
Awesome. I mean, I think the big trickle down thing that you shared, Dean, is huge. And that's kind of always been what you've said. Do you have any encouragement for the people in the room that are not senior pastors, maybe leaders or admins, and maybe they feel like they don't have as much control over some of that? Like, how would you encourage them to bring up this conversation or encourage their leadership? Because sometimes that can be an interesting dynamic to have that.
Yeah, it's funny. The revelation of generosity it always fascinates me. Like, you can literally talk about it for 2 years and someone comes up here and go, "Hey, Pastor, I just gave for the first time and it was the greatest feeling and I felt so joyful." And like, it's just the journey, like the faith journey that we've all taken to discover Christ. The giving generosity journey, I would argue, is one of the key moments of discipleship. Once you become a Christian, you start learning about your lifestyle changes. What you believe for is now different. How you treat people is now different. How you think about money is now different, because, as I'll refer to, it's not about 10%. It's not about any of that. When you give your life to Jesus, it's 100%. And so that's the standard that he sets. And once you get that revelation, whether you're a senior or, a serving leader or a volunteer, if you've got that revelation, you'll want to talk about it because you love what it's done in your own life.
Yeah. It's contagious.
Yeah. So this kind of leads into this cultivation. I would say if you're starting now, you've probably waited a bit late to cultivate generosity. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that, you guys are using digital tools to make giving easier, which you'll talk about as well. But I think you want to build this culture over many years of teaching and preaching the word of God. And so, making sure that, and again, different people believe different things about what the Bible says about generosity. My emphasis is the spiritual growth that happens inside the giver, and what it does to your own personal faith walk, and the joy. Obviously, it comes. Then you start to think about, okay, I'm going to actually have an impact, and that's why we talk a lot about the vision from the top being, hey, we're going to build a building. Hey, we're going to buy some land. Hey, we're going to do a mission to, pick a country. It's like having that, people kind of understand that they're giving not just spiritually, but actually the gifts make a worldly difference in people's lives as a result of their generosity. And I tell you, this is probably my favorite thing, is once you are freed from the love of money, obviously the Bible doesn't say that money is evil. It's when you place money above your relationship with God, that begins to infect our heart in a way that we don't want. The greatest thing that comes out of, being biblically generous is that freedom that you feel not to worry all the time about money. Because once you get on a cycle of generosity and giving and receiving and all the things that come as a result, it's just an incredible feeling. And then obviously we're always going to be grateful for everything God's doing in our life. And you want to be talking about a lot this time of year, around Christmas, around family. It's a crazy, crazy world out there that we've been put in on purpose to be salt and light. And we want to make sure that we're thankful every day that God's positioned us to be able to have a voice into our communities and share the good news.
I think going back to like the kind of like sharing the story, the narrative, and tying it into this, I love it when churches have people getting up, whether it's on video or live, and like share their actual story of generosity and like kind of like tell the stories of the impact that being generous, and sometimes even like when somebody was generous, the impact it had on other families in the church, and like really making sure you're like highlighting like how giving is helping people in the church. Some churches do it really well. Some churches don't do it at all.
Right.
But I think people get inspired. They get inspired when they see how giving
Totally.
impact, right?
Yeah,
And
we
it
love
moves in
stories.
the hearts. And in this season, like people tend to just like there is more generosity going on, at least in the US. Because it is this kind of season of giving. Like even whether you're a Christian or you go to church or you don't, it's like there is this, thing going
Mhm.
on just automatically. And so everybody is like
Yeah.
in that, I don't know, that spirit, that mood, that thing is how they're expecting it. They're even wanting to do it. So, sharing stories of impact and having your church be the place where people are giving is something I think you're trying to make happen, right? Because people can give all over the place. But if they can give kind of at church and have that spiritual impact and kind of the real world impact, it makes a big difference.
100%.
Yeah, for sure. That's good. Okay, from scriptures to modern application.
Yeah, there's so many. I preach so many sermons on generosity, but these three kind of stick out for a few reasons in my mind. The poverty that the Macedonian churches were experiencing, but even out of that, in their overflow for the love of what God had done, they supported the Apostle Paul in big time. The feeding of the 5,000 is a favorite. It's in every gospel. There's a couple different versions of it when Jesus did it. My biggest takeaway from why were there 12 baskets left over? Why did that have to happen? And my kind of feeling on it is that God is generous and he can't help himself. And when the miracle of the loaves and the fishes, of course, it started with the boy giving. So he hands it over, puts it in the hands of Jesus. I always used to pray, let's pray around this giving moment. And we're literally entrusting Jesus with our financial future in that moment.
Right.
And so the boy gave his lunch away. Everyone is fed. And, depending on what you believe, could have been 20,000. That says 5,000 men. So add the women and the children who we know were prolific in following Jesus. Probably 20,000 people got a meal. And then there was 12 baskets over because God's nature is generosity. Easy to preach. Zacchaeus, obviously, he ends up declaring, I'm going to give half of my wealth away as a result of the encounter that he has with Christ. And so easy stories to talk about generosity. There's dozens more. You probably have some favorites. The key is let's allow the Bible to tell the story about generosity. And really, at that point, it's not you teaching it. It's what God's saying.
Dean, did you have, when you were a pastor getting up, did you have individuals get up and share their story, like preach on these kind of biblical truths and but then get individuals come up and kind of share their stories with the church?
A testimony.
It was the way I trained, preachers. I'd put them on the spot because my pastor did it to me. He's like, hey, Dean, come up and give me the offering. It's like, so I learned always to be ready for a start and have something to say. But having team members talk about and take the offering for you and talk about maybe what's happened to them personally, stories are always a win. And especially if you are in the habit of developing leadership and you want to be always developing people to be able to get on the stage and minister, according to their gifts. And so there's in Bible college, all the way back in the early 80s, we would be on the spot, said, give a giving sermon for 10 minutes, go. And sometimes you were prepared, sometimes you weren't, but you got good at it. And so definitely getting other people involved, getting them to share their story, absolutely critical.
If you weren't prepared, you just did an altar call. You're like, okay.
I think I made you get up, Sharon, and take several offerings.
You did. Actually, I was just thinking about that. But I think it is cool to have other people tell their stories because it's so genuine and real to them too, right? And nothing, I mean, that comes off so well, like the genuineness that comes off when people tell their stories.
Yeah.
100%. The digital hub, this is kind of, we want to use every resource in this communication. Okay, there's not one that's better than the other. It's all of the above strategy. And so, yes, you're going to talk about it in service. Yes, you're going to use email. Yes, you're going to do all the things that hopefully we provide for you to be able to use these tools and make sure that you can get the word out. It's the most critical thing. And there'll be some best practices here in a moment. But, take advantage of the tools we've built that are very robust. Billions of dollars flow through those tools every year. And so take advantage of those, know what you have in your toolbox, and unleash everything in this moment to raise awareness and generosity.
It's like the ask.
Yeah, we're going to say other things on other slides, so I don't want to say too much here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. Landing page best practices.
This is kind of more your zone than me.
Yeah. Like every church should have a website, number one. And we also tend to think like churches should have a mobile app for like their members, the people who call that church home. And you just want to make it easy. So you're going to be in church on Sunday, or you're going to send notes out in email or on social media. When people get to that page on your website, it should just be really, really easy to give, right? So you get to the website, maybe there's a give button in the top right. You get to the landing page. And the form should be easy to use. It should be kind of easy to kind of complete everything. Like Tithely handles all that. I think for you as a church, you just want to make sure it's easy for someone to get to that giving form. So in the top left, it mentions like a memorable URL. You can have, your church website, mychurch.com/give. That's a pretty easy, pretty common, URL format to use. You can put that on screen on a Sunday. You can put that in emails. You can put that on social media. When you get to that landing page, having the form right there, like the giving form right there on the page, so somebody doesn't have to click again and go somewhere else, but it's already there. They can give right away. And then not overkilling, but like on that page, you can reinforce the story, right? You can reinforce the why. You can reinforce the vision of your church. You can have information right there on like why we give and why we like to, support the things we do as a church, all of that. It can kind of go right there on the page. Sometimes you have stories of impact if you have video-based stories, you can have stories of impact or testimonies on the page around kind of the impact it's had on people's lives. So you can get really kind of sophisticated here, but ultimately you want that page to be easy to find, easy to give on that page, and tell a little bit about your why. Obviously we mentioned mobile giving or mobile first. It better work on a phone, because most people in church on a Sunday are going to bring up that giving page on their phone. And so it better work. If they're going just to the Tithely giving form, it's going to work on a phone. But if they're going to a page on your website, you just want to make sure it works on there, because you know how it is, right? If you try to do a form on your phone and it doesn't work well, you're most likely going to abandon and be like, oh, I'll do this later. Right. And you don't
frustrated.
You don't want that to happen in the giving moment. You want to take advantage of that moment right there.
Yeah, I think the takeaway is there's a reason Amazon spends billions of dollars to make it easy to buy. Now, we're not selling anything, but there is a transaction involved, right? We're giving, but there's a bunch of magic that happens under the covers that makes that thing go through. The less barriers you can put in front of that to get people to that moment. I've been on websites where to get to the giving moment, I've probably clicked 8 times. That's like,
or you can't find it at all. Yeah,
or they can't even find it. I mean, top right is always the place to put it.
Right.
But less clicks the better. Make it simple, and friction and the internet is a real thing. Once you put some barriers up, the drop off is extreme, and so we always kind of lead with on the technical side. Make it simple.
Yeah, I think we have it in a couple slides, but we're talking about the landing page here, but like make it easy for people to get to the landing page. So if you're in a church service, having that screen up during the giving moment,
always
please put the screen up and leave the screen up during the giving moment.
Right.
Don't put it up for 12 seconds and then move to another slide.
Right.
Yeah.
Put the giving screen up. And you probably, if you don't, you should have a QR code on the giving screen where people can pull out their phones and like click the URL right there. Super easy. Most people have gotten familiar with doing that. If you don't leave it up for long enough, then people are going to pull out their phones and then go to do the thing, and then the slide's gone.
Right.
So leave the screen up or leave the QR code up on some screen the entire time, and make it really easy for people to scan that. The other thing that, we're kind of putting out into the universe for customers here pretty soon is like being able to tap on a device, right? So like that's another way where you can make it easy for someone to just tap on a disc and they can give. But even before the landing page, make it easy to get to the landing page in the church service. Like when you're physically present in the building, it's different than like navigating via an email or social media, but in church,
Right.
make it really easy for people to get to your giving form.
Yeah. And a lot of our churches also make it really easy in the lobby, right? As they're visiting with people, like having moments in their lobby outside of just the core church moment. But
yeah,
what Frank said on that slide, like just leave it up as long as you can, and really just give space for people to be able to get to do it physically. The old days we did envelopes, which take longer and are more cumbersome. Some people still use a lot of envelopes, but just make it as easy as they can and leave it up. Even as you're closing the message part and you're going to pray, over the offering, just leave it up there. People are still doing it, and just give yourself some time and space there.
The rule of thumb is probably, I've never really thought about it, but it's probably like, as long as it takes to pass the baskets around church,
there you go.
You should leave the slide. Like don't take the slide down until that moment is done, because people literally they're pulling up their phones, they're doing the thing, then they got to fill it out. Maybe it doesn't work and they got to go back again. Like you just leave it up. It's a pet peeve of mine because I've seen it happen in a lot of churches. We'll have it up for literally like 8 seconds and then it's gone. And like, how did you expect me to actually get to the giving form that fast?
Right. Yeah. So cohesive communication, I think this is great as well, because a lot of times, like we covered, the URL page, we covered in service, like really good points on doing this in service. But what about other, especially like you have Sunday coming up soon, is it the last Sunday? I think you have two more. But how do you handle outside of that? People who are traveling, people who you want to get the message to. Any pointers, Dean and Frank, here?
I think, like we said, it's an all the above strategy.
Yep.
And I think, thinking about those last 3 or 4 days, having an email, text, social media, push notification strategy is really important in those last 3 days. So don't think, oh, Sunday I'm going to talk about it. We're going to do everything we just talked about, and then we're going to forget it. No.
Yeah.
You're going to communicate on purpose around generosity. And that's why, having a story, what am I giving to? What has this church done in 2025 that excites me, and I supported, and I saw this fruit as a result of my generosity? Like, all of those things are really critical. But communicating right, even on the 31st, I would encourage you to send an encouragement email. Love you, church. Thank you for all you've done. We've had a fantastic year. 2026 is going to be even better. Here's the giving button. Even on the 31st, I would do that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That last minute reminder.
And you got to use all the channels. Ideally you're doing it like for the whole month of December. Like, I love when churches have the kind of year in review.
Yes.
Spotify's made this famous, but churches should be doing it too. Like, and talking about it early in December, not at the very last day of December, but talking about it early in December. Like, what kind of impact have we had in our community as a church? And like, kind of telling the story of the last year in your, it can be a 1-page kind of PDF guide. It can be a 10-page guide. It depends on your church and what you've done, but you can keep it simple. You can get really elaborate, but talking about like the impact and what's gone on in your church, and reminding people like things that it's December, things that happened in Q1 happened a long time ago. People, forgot about that. But if you remind them, they'll remember, oh yeah, we went to this event and we did this thing, or, oh, we helped this family, or whatever you've done. And then talking about that throughout the month of December, and using all these channels to keep telling that, the stories of impact all month long. So I love churches that have that kind of concept, like the year in review, the impact the church has had. Using email, you should be sending an email every Monday morning or Sunday evening. And in that email, there should be a way to click the button to give. I also love using text, like churches that use text messages. Like, my church does a pretty good job of it. Not every church does, but like, I get an email, I think it's Monday mornings. I usually get an email like on Saturdays reminding like, hey, we've got church tomorrow. Don't forget, meet you here. You can use text to even send the reminder like, hey, towards the end of the end of December, reminding people like, hey, church, the year's almost out. If you're still thinking about making a final gift, like click here to give, and it's right in the text.
Right.
And you want to remind people, to Dean's point, all the way up to the 31st, because some people don't know, maybe they're getting a bonus at the end of the year. Maybe they own a business, and so they don't know what their income's going to be until the year gets pretty close to the end. That's why you see all these big gifts. There's people give for tax purposes, but there's also other reasons. And if you're not telling people, reminding people, there is a chance that they just forget, or maybe it wasn't even on their heart because nobody ever asked.
Right.
You're out there saying something and letting people know that they can give to the church. And I don't know, you're just being around and you're mentioning giving and generosity. You're trying to inspire people. I think you will end up getting more giving at the end of the year if you do those things.
100%. And like, yeah, it just can't be stated enough, how this moment, and to Frank's point on the business side, if you run a business, you're deep into the fourth quarter here and you're kind of like, oh, we had a pretty good year and the cash flow is good and we've got X amount in the bank. And I've talked to pastors before that haven't been like kind of focused on the ask, and people have gone and given millions of dollars to other causes. And I know a guy who, like, he gave $3 million to a university, and he's like, well, how come you didn't give at least some of that to the church? He says, well, you never asked. I didn't think you needed it. Whereas I get letters from my alma mater here like every other week, and they're
Right.
building this and they're doing that. So it's like having your people aware that you have a worthy mission, and it begins with preaching the gospel and saving souls, and then all the good we do in our communities, all that we should be doing, and you've got to present it, and people get attached to that vision, and that's what maybe the difference between them going, you know what, I'm going to get behind my community church because they're doing fantastic things. They got a vision for X, Y, Z for 2020. And I want to be a part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in a really, really, really practical way, like these things on screen, it's like people are so busy, especially end of year. It's like, these are like, we've heard stories of people being genuinely like just thankful for the reminder as well. So
Right.
I love what Margot said about the bulletin. A lot of people still have paper bulletins.
yeah.
In the bulletin, really smart.
Right. Right. Is it storytelling?
Yeah.
I think to me, this goes back to like, do you have a story to tell, and are you telling it, and if you have like the year in review concept, I love that for churches, because it's like, it makes you think about the story of your year and the impact you've had, and then telling that story throughout December. I mean, that's one way to do it that I think any church can pull off. You don't have to go
Right.
like dream up something new or kind of get too caught up. You just, tell what you've done, like remind the church of what you've done throughout the year, and remind your church of the impact that they have all had, like the church being the people, right? Like what has your church done, and who have they served, and what's the impact they've had in the community, and, how many people have become Christians because of what you're doing there, like telling those stories throughout the month. It's just one way to do your storytelling, just by talking about what you've done all year.
And some of that happens down inside the church, beyond where the senior leadership might have eyes and ears. And so go to your team and say, well, give me the 3 greatest things that happened because of your ministry in 2025. Oh, we helped the single mother. Oh, we, help these kids. Like ask your team, because they'll know stories that you don't. And so get your team to tell you the top 3, 4 things that happened in 25, and then use those to be able to inspire more people to give.
Yeah. It's awesome. Okay. Enhancing the Sunday experience from collection to celebration.
Yeah, this is this is a little tough because we have such a gamut of types of church on the platform, and so all this has to be taken in the context to how you do church, and so just adapt. But I think from what we've said, kind of making sure we really hone in and not being shy about this whole subject this time of the year. And like I said, there's ways to do it where people will not be offended. But honestly, if you're getting offended at trying to help people, it's like there's something not right there. Like we should rejoice that there is a local church committed to this vision, whatever that,
Right.
insert your vision. And, if we're doing like a webinar in January about setting up the year, I'd be probing, into your thinking around what's your vision for 2025. Sure, we might even do that webinar in late January or something.
Yeah.
But it's like, what's your vision? And here's what you've got to articulate. And so by the time you get to December, it's like everybody knows. They're just like ecstatic and excited to be generous at that point because of all that's being done and everything that's going to come in the future.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, we've talked about this. You've got to make it a moment. You can't gloss over it. It drives me nuts when pastors are embarrassed to talk about, financial things. It is very high up on every family's list, their finances. And
Right.
whether they've had a good year, a bad year, whether they're out of work, in work, whether they've prospered, whether their business grew or it didn't, it's on the minds of families. And so I just think we have to take the lead. We have great friends like Dave Ramsey, and we're partners with all kinds of kind of great resources where, you can educate and get people literate around things financial, both on the giving side and just managing your own money and saving and investing and all those things. But it's you cannot be shy because this is such an important part of people's lives. It's in the top couple, reasons why people get divorced. It's in the top couple reasons that marriages get under pressure, that kids struggle. And so beyond the generosity conversation, we should always be talking about how to get our people financially literate. And then you've got business people in your church who are brilliant at this. And so get them involved in, doing a class or telling a story on how to manage your own finances. And then that sets you up for success when it comes time to generosity.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Amen.
I know that was like a mic drop moment. Well, and I did say this just as that we're doing these last couple slides. I know this is kind of a different webinar. A lot of times we're doing educational webinars, right? And so there's a lot of questions about the how-to. But if you do have any questions in these last few minutes, throw them either in chat or Q&A, and Dean and Frank are definitely here to answer and be a part. But thank you so much, Dean and Frank, obviously, for doing this. It's really cool to have this conversation with our customers, and we know that people are going to be listening to this after as well, so this will live on. But just before we end, we just wanted to share about the products we have. Some were even mentioned by Dean and Frank. Frank mentioned TAP as well. But we are an all-in-one solution and have all kinds of things. So we just wanted to give you a visual, because maybe some of you here are just using Giving, or maybe you're just like using our CHMS, our Breeze product, or different things, and you might not be aware. And so at any time when you're logged in, you can just go to add a subscription, and we will take care of you. You can also, at any point in time, if you have questions when you're within Tithely or on our website, go to the chat bot at the bottom right. And actually, the team that Daniel and I are on, customer experience, we'd love to actually help you if you have any questions about year-end giving or about any of the products or services that we offer. So do not be shy about that. And then tithelyuniversity.com, we have tons of resources. We host monthly webinars, right, that we host there, but also just things around onboarding or refreshing your memory, all kinds of resources that our team works diligently on to produce for all of you. So check it out and learn more there. And then that's really it.
Yeah.
We're just thrilled to have this moment with you before the holidays, and I don't see any questions pop up, so we're going to let some of you go a little bit early. But Dean and Frank, anything you want to say before we officially end this webinar and say goodbye to our customers?
We're going to be praying for you. I want to see all of our churches prosper. It's the reason we started the company many years ago, is so we could see financial resources given to the church's vision to expand around the world. And so we're believing with you, standing with you, trying to provide all the tools we can to help you. And we want you to have a wonderful, beautiful, successful Christmas this year. So thank you.
Yes.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
Nothing to add. Great for you guys.
Yes. Awesome. All right. Well, Merry Christmas, everyone. Again, thanks for joining us, and we will be in touch with you soon, and we'll send these resources out as well so you have access to them.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, guys.